Welcome to Universal Brief, where global curiosity meets clear answers.
Okay, so in the final days of 2025, the world was holding its breath as China kicked off this massive series of live-fire drills right around Taiwan. So what on earth triggered all this? And more importantly, what does it all mean? Let's dive in and break it down. Right off the bat, you've got two totally different stories. On one hand, Beijing called its exercises a stern warning against what they call separatist forces. But on the other hand, Taipei saw it as nothing less than military intimidation. I mean, that's the core of the whole conflict, right there. But to really understand what set off this latest round, we need to look at one single, very, very big number. $11.1 billion. And no, that's not the national debt of a small country. That right there, that's the catalyst. This one number kicked off a chain reaction that filled the Taiwan Strait with warships and fighter jets. So you're probably asking, what did all that money buy? To really get to the bottom of these military drills, we've got to rewind the tape just a few days to an arms sale that was, well, completely unprecedented. This wasn't just another routine deal. This one shattered records and sent a huge message all the way across the Pacific. Now this is where it gets really interesting. It's not just the price tag, it's the type of gear we're talking about. Look at this list. You've got advanced, mobile, super precise weaponry. We're talking HIMARS, rocket systems, these loitering munitions, which people often call suicide drones, and seriously powerful anti-tank missiles. This stuff isn't just for sitting back and defending. It's practically designed for what military folks call asymmetric warfare. Basically, it lets a smaller force punch way, way above its weight against a much larger one. And let's be super clear here. This wasn't business as usual. This was the largest single package of its kind ever. It signaled a major shift in policy. A move this big was pretty much guaranteed to get a response from Beijing. The only question was, what would that response look like? Well, the response came, and it came fast. Beijing announced these exercises with a code name Justice Mission 2025. I mean, the name itself tells you a lot, right? It frames the whole thing not as aggression, but as a necessary step to, as they put it, safeguard national sovereignty. This timeline really lays out just how quickly everything went down. You can literally draw a straight line from one event to the next. December 17th, the arms deal is made public. Just 3 days later, China hits back with sanctions on U.S. defense companies. And then, bam, less than 2 weeks after the deal was announced, the drills kick off. It's a really clear, rapid cause and effect. And the scale of this response? It was just immense. Get this, in just one 24-hour period, Taiwan's military said it tracked 130 Chinese aircraft, 14 naval ships, and 8 other official vessels buzzing around the island. This wasn't just a PR stunt, this was a massive, coordinated mobilization of air and sea power. Okay, but here's the absolutely crucial part. These drills were so much more than just firing off some missiles for practice. What we were watching was a full-dress rehearsal for one of the most serious scenarios imaginable in this conflict, a complete and total blockade of Taiwan. China's military actually put out maps showing these 5 huge live-fire zones. And just look at where they are, to the north, south, and east. They form a ring, completely surrounding the island. They were practicing how to put the island in a chokehold, cutting it off from global shipping and any possible help from the outside. And these zones weren't just random spots on a map. The exercises were zeroed in on simulating a blockade of Taiwan's most vital ports, Keelung up in the north and Kaohsiung down in the south. The goal here is crystal clear: choke off the flow of trade, energy, food, and, most critically, stop any outside military help from ever reaching the island. You don't even have to guess the strategy here. This quote from a professor at China's PLA National Defense University just spells it out perfectly. Sealing internally and blocking externally. It's such a clear explanation of their two-part goal: control what's happening on the island, and at the same time build a wall to keep anyone else from getting involved. Now, this whole idea of blocking externally, well, that's not just a tactic for these specific drills. It's actually part of a much larger, way more sophisticated military strategy that China has been pouring resources into for decades. It has a specific name, and it's designed to completely rewrite the rules of power in the region. It's called anti-access/area denial, or A2/AD for short. It sounds really technical, but the core idea is actually pretty straightforward. You use layers of long-range missiles, submarines, and aircraft to make it way too dangerous for an enemy force, say a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier, to get anywhere close to your shores. You're basically creating a giant no-go zone or a defensive bubble. And if you want to understand just how powerful this strategy is, you only need to look at this one number. 4,000 kilometers. That's about 2,500 miles. That's the staggering range of China's DF-26 missile, a missile nicknamed the Carrier Killer. It's a land-based missile that can hit a moving aircraft carrier from halfway across the continent. This weapon is a cornerstone of their whole A2/AD strategy. The strategic impact of this capability is just huge. It's like this quote says, China is basically turning itself into a continent-sized coastal fortress. It's no longer just a land power. It can now project its strength hundreds and hundreds of miles out into the ocean, all from the relative safety of its own territory. So, we've looked at the military hardware, we've looked at the grand strategy. But what does all this mean for the people actually on the ground, and frankly, for the global economy? Well, the contrast here is pretty stark. You know, if you were to walk around the streets of Taiwan, you might find a surprising level of calm. This quote from an 80-year-old fruit seller really captures a feeling you hear a lot, that this is all just political theater, posturing, and that the economic cost of a real war would just be too high for anyone to actually go through with it. But then you see this number, $19.1 trillion. According to the Institute for Economics and Peace, that's the estimated global economic impact of violence and conflict, just for 2024. It's an absolutely mind-boggling figure that shows just how high the bill for conflict already is for all of us. And when you dig into that number, one thing just leaps off the page. Military spending alone accounts for almost half of that entire cost, a whopping $9 trillion. That's the single biggest economic drain from global conflict, blowing past even the direct economic losses from war itself. So all of this, it brings us to one final and kind of unsettling question. These weren't just simple drills. They were an incredibly realistic simulation of an actual blockade. So as these rehearsals get more and more lifelike, becoming almost indistinguishable from the real thing, how can anyone tell where the practice ends and the real attack begins?
Thank you for watching. Subscribe to Universal Brief for concise updates and global insights.